put them together. I remember myself being in a very dark, open area, and like a tunnel opened up. And when I first came out of my coma, I explained it to my daughter that I thought I was on an airplane, because it was that type of a shape to it, you know, like a
Was there noise?
No,
was there
it was
noise?
quiet.
Okay.
It was very quiet, and I was traveling through the tunnel. The tunnel wasn't traveling with me. I was traveling through the
Up or side?
horizontally.
Okay.
Yeah,
Out?
that's the way it felt. Out.
Like out and away?
Yeah, out and away. And sporadically, there were small little windows, I call them windows, along each side of the tunnel. And outside of the tunnel, there was this very bright, miraculous light. It was just so brilliant and shined, and you could actually feel some of the warmth, you know, inside of the tunnel from it. But the light didn't come into the tunnel. It stayed on the outside. And I was curious about that. Why isn't this light shining in? Because I gotta be honest, I had no idea where I was at.
I understand.
And I exited the tunnel, and I was in a magnificent hall, a big, beautiful, gorgeous room, all gold and clear glass, and it had beautiful crystal looking chandeliers. And
What were you at that time? Could you see yourself?
no, I could not see.
Did you notice? Did you look down and notice?
No, I didn't notice my hands,
Okay.
the feet. It was just pure consciousness
Okay.
in that realm.
Did you think I'm dead at that point, or any of these points?
Shortly thereafter, after I arrived, because of the individual that approached me, somebody was with me. Somebody was with me, and I didn't know who it was.
In the tunnel?
No, when I exited into the room.
Okay, when you got in the room, somebody was there.
Room, I felt somebody was with me. I couldn't see them. I just
Okay.
strongly felt their presence.
Okay.
And I felt the presence of other spirits in this hall, but I don't remember seeing them. But I
Could
felt
you feel the
there.
distance they were from you?
Yes. They were some distance away. It was almost like if I was standing on like an entranceway, and these steps went down into this open room, and they were all down around, you know.
They were below you?
Below me in this open area, this big, beautiful, you know, hall that I was in. And I remember looking.
Was there a crowd? Was there a few? Could you tell?
I knew that, like I said, I couldn't see them, but I felt them, and I knew there were many there.
Many, okay.
Many there.
I understand.
And this gentleman floats up to me, human from the waist up, long flowing like cloth or a robe, you know, below, no legs. And that's when I said, I've got to be dead. You know,
okay.
I have to be, what is going on, you know? And he came up to me, and we started talking about the room. And I said to him, I said, this room is undescribable. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And he goes, yes, it's so pretty and well, you know, and looks so nice, you know. And he said, but you're not supposed to be here. And I said, what do you mean? I'm not, what do you, what? And he goes, no, you have to leave. You're not supposed to be here. And he pointed me to these doors. And the doors, again, were just magnificent. Very tall, very large, framed in gold, you know, transparent, etched glass, and just a beautiful, beautiful doors. And I walked out these doors and went down, maybe about 6 or 7 steps, and I was at street level. And I looked out over the street. And
what are you seeing? So you've seen something now. Is this the first you sensed something before? And other than the doors, this is the first you really see an environment?
Yeah, besides seeing the inside of the hall.
And the half guy.
And the half guy. I remember looking at the doors. and then I exited the doors into a city.
Oh, and you got full view.
Full view, absolutely magnificent.
Tell me everything.
Beautiful.
Paint me a picture.
City. And I remember it had area, the streets were just immaculate. And they weren't like, and you're the first person to ask me this, they weren't asphalt. You know what I mean? They weren't dark asphalt. They were like a clear substance of some type. The buildings were just gold and clear glass, and all different type of sizes of buildings, immaculately kept. There was green space with just beautiful green grass, green areas, just absolutely beautiful. And it was silent, but there was people around. There was no automobiles or cars or anything.
Simon, what?
It was silent. It was real quiet,
Okay.
no noise whatsoever. But I knew that there were people around. I knew
Was there
they were
sky?
present. I didn't visualize the sky right away.
Okay.
I did later, but not right away, because I walked down the steps and started to walk through the city, and just taking in this beautiful, ornate buildings, and just in awe of the sheer beauty of this place. And I remember getting tired, and I felt lost. I got
tired.
I got tired and I got lost. And I said, uh-oh, how am I going to find my way back?
Like you didn't see any people. You're just alone in this?
I felt people. I felt their presence, because when I sat down, I finally sat down, and I eventually found myself laying down in the gutter on the side of the road. And I said to myself, why are these people, no one's helping me. I'm laying here and these people are walking past, and I felt their presence. I didn't see them, and no one is stopping to help me. I don't understand. Why aren't they helping me? How am I going to get back? I'm lost. And I felt cold. I felt very cold. And that's the first time, that's when I realized, I visualized my body. I had hands, I had feet at that time. And I'm laying there, and I said, how am I going to get back? And I looked over, and I saw a magnificent white set of stairs going up into the sky. And that's when I noticed of the sky, because these steps went as far as the eye could see. They went up through the clouds and went right up into this magnificent blue glowing sky. But it wasn't our blue. It was a different blue, and it just glowed in light and warmth, And I said, if I can get over to those steps, I'm going to be able to maybe climb high enough where somebody could see me. So I walked over to those steps, and I started to crawl up these white steps. And I heard somebody yell, there he is, there's Randy, get him. And somebody grabbed me by my shirt collar and just whisked me off of those steps. It was just whisked me right off the steps. And I was back into darkness. And that was kind of the end, if you will, of that particular episode. I think I was in the Hall of Records. Now that I've learned, how it's been, others have described it.
When you were walking around that
when
city,
when I first came out of the tunnel, in that big, magnificent room that I was in, I believe that was the Hall of Records.
Okay.
Because of the way it's described, tiered and beautiful gold and gold chandeliers and things. And when I exited, it was probably in the city of God, of what others call the New Jerusalem, is where I feel like I was walking around and getting lost in. And I was pulled back from there, The second one I had was somewhat similar to the first. I went back to that same city. I found myself in that same city, and I was walking around again, but I was in a different section of the city. These buildings weren't as large as where I was previously. They weren't as big. They're just as beautiful, and it was just as well maintained.
So when you went back, you started out in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I went through the tunnel.
Oh, again?
Again, but with this time I didn't exit it in that hall. I exited into the city.
Okay.
And again, I felt the presence of other people, and I was in a different section of the city. And I think that's why when I first came to, they first brought me out of my coma. I think that's why I described them as two different cities to my kids, because I didn't know where I was. And my own point of reference was, well, I think I was in Paris and I think I was in London. Because at that time, that was my only reference,
Have you been to those places?
I have.
Okay.
Nothing like them, I mean, the city I was at was not anything like where I was. They were both somewhat dirty and unkept, and noise and everything. This was just absolutely so peaceful, both times, so peaceful, so quiet. You felt acceptance. I could feel acceptance. But I'm wondering, because the individual told me I'm not supposed to be there, I had to leave. I'm just wondering, and it's been suggested that, maybe I couldn't see him because I wasn't supposed to be there. I started to relay this like I was the uninvited dinner guest that just happened to show up, and they didn't expect me. So it's like, uh-oh, what are you doing here? And they bring Uncle Harry over to say, hey, Uncle, entertain this guy for a few minutes and then show him the door,
But that half guy saw you.
He did, and he approached me, and I almost felt that he was in charge somehow. You know what I mean? He was, because he
to say you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, he talked
that kind
about
of commands.
the room. Right. You're not supposed to hear. You need to leave. And almost like a gatekeeper, maybe. And that's a good. My wife just suggested that. That's a good reference, almost like a gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't let me in any further.
So now the second time you're in a different part of the city.
In a different part of the city, it was just as beautiful. I mean, just as clean and peaceful and quiet, and just glowed with this magnificent light and warmth. And it didn't I felt it didn't last as long as the first one, because I said to myself, I know where those steps are. And if I can get back to those steps, somebody can find me again. So that's exactly what I did as I walked.
Was you thinking at that time, any of that time, like, okay, you realize you're dead, but was you thinking I'm in heaven?
No, because I didn't have any reference.
Okay. Did you remember who you were? Did you remember I'm in the hospital? Why am I here? I mean, no, it was like you a clean slate.
Yeah, almost like a clean slate. Like where am I? Why am I here?
Okay.
I want to go back to my family. Any of that.
Oh, so you remembered you had a family.
Yeah, but that didn't dawn on me that, kind of where I was, because growing up, we weren't very religious. We didn't really have a good, strong religious background to
What about now?
reference on.
Has this changed?
Now it's changed completely. My daughters, my wife was Catholic, and she was in Catholic school, and all of our kids went through Catholic school. And we were unfortunately the Christmas and Easter bunch,
Yeah.
And when I grew, and that wasn't until I married my wife 48 years ago. My family growing up started out as a Christmas Easter bunch, and then that when we moved to Florida, when I was about 7 years old, that kind of weaned off and just stopped, And and we really didn't go to church or pray or discuss God in any way. So I think that has some type of a reference, you know. I didn't have a
That's
reference.
funny. That's funny. It's like church was a building, it wasn't a relationship. And your NDEs, you were like around the buildings, but there was not relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, then maybe that's like a metaphor of your spirituality. You were in the building, but it wasn't in your heart.
It wasn't in my heart to be there or understand what was happening to me. So I refer back to just the references that I knew, that I had experienced and were familiar with, to initially describe where I was. But I know now that I wasn't in London or I wasn't in Paris. You know, my spirit had gone up, my consciousness had gone up, you know, to heaven for sure.
Did this at any time move into anything more than the buildings, the streets, the view, the doors?
My third one is different.
Oh, okay.
Completely different.
Now, was that into the second one there, just
Yes,
walking around
yes.
again, and then just suddenly you're back?
I went back to the steps. I knew where the steps were, and I said, how am I going to get out of here? And then it dawned on me, I know where those steps are. If I can find my way back to the steps, somebody will find me. So I found my way back to those steps, and the same thing happened. I started to climb up those steps again, and it was, hey, Randy, he's right there, get him. And somebody grabbed me from the back and just pulled me right off of those steps. Same thing, you know. And so the second one was there, it happened, but I felt it was much shorter. If I had to put a time on it, it didn't last as long as the first one did.
Okay.
This one I'm going to tell you now is the one that I love the most. I didn't transition through a tube or anything. I remember that I was standing in somewhat of a open, and I'm going to use the term dark, but it was a glowing dark, open field of some sort. And I was trying to figure out where I was when I felt the presence of someone beside me. And no words were spoken, but I knew telepathically that I was supposed to follow this person. And I didn't feel like I was walking. I felt almost like I was gliding through this open space. And I looked off to my left, and it was almost like, I explain it this way. You're looking at a very dark stage, and all of a sudden the spotlight comes on and hits an actor, and all of a sudden you see the actor sitting there. This light came on, this real brilliant warmth light came on, and my mother-in-law, who passed away several years ago, was sitting there at a bar. Beautiful, it almost looked like a beautiful oak engraved bar.
Was she a drinker in life?
Not a big drinker. No. Yeah, occasional some wine and stuff, but not a big drinker. She was all dressed in white, beautiful white dress on. Much younger. She passed away, was in her 70s, and she was much younger, probably 30-ish, maybe, if I had to give it an age. She had long dark hair, and she had all of her hair pulled up, and a beautiful white ribbon, you know, of some sort around her head. And there's just a beautiful flowing, I didn't see any legs or anything because it was covered up by this beautiful flowing white dress that she had on. And she was sitting there very straight. And I use the term royal because as she was sitting there, she had an elbow on it, and she was just sitting there in a very royal stature, you know. And she glanced over at me momentarily and then looked away. And she was looking off to her, would have been her left. She was kind of looking off to her left. And then behind this bar, this individual who came running along, and he was knocking all the bottles off of the back of the bar. And I recognized him immediately. That was my brother-in-law, Mark, who had also passed away, unfortunately, from a drug overdose several years ago. And he was a hooligan in life. And so he was a hooligan in heaven as well, because he was knocking all these bottles off, and he ran past his mom, and I just kind of ran out of sight, you know. But I saw him very briefly, and all of a sudden that light went off, and we continued on. Again, I felt I was supposed to follow this person, and we continued on, and we came up to an invisible barrier of some sort. And I felt that I couldn't go any further, that there was something in front of me that I couldn't progress any further, invisible. My one daughter told me, well, Dad, that was the veil of death, you know, and you weren't allowed, or you weren't supposed to pass through this veil. And I remember seeing off to my left-hand side these three figures, and I saw them before, and when we started to walk again, I saw them. But as we walked down and we approached this barrier, they got better into focus, and that I could see them better. And I realized that it was my mom and my dad and my sister. All three had passed away. And my dad had his back to me, and my mom and my sister were facing me. And my dad looked at me and then quickly turned away. And my mother and my sister turned their backs. And I couldn't understand why they weren't talking to me, why they wouldn't acknowledge my presence, you know, and why weren't they speaking? I knew it was them. And why weren't they talking with me? I couldn't understand that. And they were standing there, and all of a sudden that light kind of started to dim. And I remember saying, you know, I don't want to lose them. I don't want them to go. But that light just slowly dimmed out. And then all of a sudden I felt on my right-hand side this presence of a person approaching me. And I looked, and again, he was human from the waist up, younger man, probably, again, 30-ish, maybe young 40s, dark hair, full head of dark hair. And he approached me, and the bottom half of him, again, was a very long, flowing robe sort of thing, some type of a linen, you know, robe on the bottom. And a barrier, there was definitely a barrier still between us. And he came up and he stopped right in front of me. And he says, as clear as what you and I are talking, tell Madison at the salon her grandfather is okay.